welcome to Be the Light. I am Denise Rezsonya, your show host, and I am here today with Dr. Michael Fitzgerald from Noblesville Pediatrics. Welcome to the show, Dr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. We're going to be talking about a topic which is actually causing a lot of buzz right now, which we didn't actually know when we originally scheduled today's topic, but it's concussions. And I know myself, as a parent of a child who plays sports, this is definitely a topic that is of concern to me. And so I really appreciate you coming on today and trying to help us kind of better understand concussions and what to look for and how to help our kids.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
What I see teenagers and even younger children, probably 40% of all concussions actually do happen in childhood between ages of 8 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see younger kids with concussions too, whether that's from falling off their bike or skateboard or rollerblades or roughhousing around the house and
David, my brother, if you're watching this, that's you.
So it's not strictly a teenage thing, and so it's gotten a lot more buzz, like you said. There's a new movie out talking about concussions in the NFL athlete population, and over the last few years it's gotten a lot more look-see, I guess, from coaches, from physicians. It seems as if there is more articles written and a lot more information about concussions, but still people are confused about what a concussion is, what happens to cause a concussion, what is not a concussion, how to deal with it, how to watch your child with a concussion. So what I was thinking of doing is just kind of going through the head injury itself and go from there, how that teenager is evaluated and the whole pathway to recovery.
Okay.
If that's all right with you.
That would be great.
So starting with what a concussion is, the definition is just a trauma-induced brain injury. And so that is the new buzzword, if you will, is for concussion, because the word concussion has been used for so many years now. People think of a stinger or, you got your head, rung, your bell rung, and you're fine after that because it's a very temporary thing. So we're trying to not use the word concussion as much, and actually say what it is. It is a brain injury. It's a traumatic brain injury causing some dysfunction of the neurons of the brain and the cells in the brain. And you can imagine your brain is this nice, soft, gushy organ surrounded by liquid, surrounded by then an outer hard shell. And it's not connected to that hard shell, it's kind of floating in that hard shell. And if that hard shell hits the ground or another thing, depending on how fast you are going or how fast the object coming at you has hit you, then that brain is going to shift in there. And number one, it's going to hit against the hard shell inside, hit your skull. But much of the injury is caused by a rotational injury with the brain as well. So it's a shear kind of force, not a direct head-on force, no pun intended, but kind of a rotational injury. And what it's not, a concussion is not necessarily a huge bleed in the brain. I think that's a big worry that parents have. They have heard all these stories about people who have head injuries, and then they know that there's a possibility that there's bleeding inside the brain, and they know that if you have enough blood inside the brain and it's pushing on the brain tissue, then you can be unconscious, you can go into a coma, you can also have death. And I think parents are extremely frightened of this idea that that's what a concussion is. And it's not that. Now there can be some bleeding in the brain with a head injury, and you can have both a bleed in the head and a concussion in the head, but they're not one and the same. So what's happening with a concussion is these neurons are they flash, they twist, they kind of break their connections with each other, and It's almost like a big flash of energy that is used up. And then when you use all that energy, you have to replace all the energy of all those billions and trillions of nerve cells in there. It's going to require a lot of glucose in the body. When you run 10 miles, you're using up all your energy, and you get lactic acid buildup in your muscles, and it makes your muscles sore and fatigued and tired. Lactic acid also builds up in the brain because you've used all that energy up in your brain, and so you get lactic acid buildup there too. So that's part of it.
So that's why young people that have concussion, well, I guess anybody that has a concussion, they experience those symptoms then?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
So say there's a football player out on the field. And football is the most common sports for boys to have a concussion, but any kind of contact or heavy sport like football, wrestling, rugby, lacrosse, girls sports like lacrosse, field hockey, soccer is probably the most common sport in girls to have a concussion. Head-to-head trauma, tripping, falling, hitting their head on the hard ground. So, and ski sports and wheel sports, so biking, skateboarding, and such are also dangerous things to have happen. But I just pick football because that is in the news right now and such. So a player goes up for a pass. He's kind of defenseless a little bit. He's up in the air. He's going fast. You got another player whose sole duty is to take that ball away from him, tackle him, make him not get any further. So you have two, probably anywhere from 150 to 200 pound young men, and they're going very fast and they're colliding, and not only can they collide helmet to helmet, but also then their helmets hit the ground as well. So then you have that kind of what we said, rotational injury and a head-to-head trauma at the same time. Immediate kind of findings can be, you can be unconscious, but only about 10% of kids who have a concussion actually report that they lost consciousness, and the trainers and the sideline physicians report that as well. But immediate nausea, blurry vision, spots in their eyes, so seeing stars kind of thing. Immediate headache sometimes, but sometimes it is, minutes or hours later that they can get that. Unsteadiness. You've seen video of people who get up from a hit and they start walking to the wrong huddle, or they're kind of falling over a little bit. So you have these gait disturbances as well. So then the important thing is to get them off the field. Even if you're not sure if it was a concussion or not, you get them off the field and you get them evaluated. And trainers and coaches and sideline physicians are very good about nowadays evaluating them neurologically. Number one, making sure that there's no sign of a more serious injury like a bleed. And many times with an acute bleed, so right away you're filling up your brain cavity with a lot of blood, you're going to see some certain neurological signs that they are aware of, and then they can get them in an ambulance and get them to the hospital right away. But if they're pretty sure that this wasn't one of the serious injuries, then at least you keep them off the field and you kind of evaluate their neurological status, the short-term memory, give them some words to remember. What day is it? What's your name? What's my name? Who are we playing? Is it a Friday night or a Saturday night? What month are we in? Who's the president right now? So see what kind of common things that they should know. Do a quick neurological exam of their body to make sure that, again, you're not seeing anything bad with that. And then keep them out of the game. And so that's what you're going to see probably in the immediate evaluation. And then you're going to be referred probably to your primary care physician or a neurologist for further evaluation.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue this conversation about concussions. Thank you.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. and we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. Sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid-back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Welcome back to Be the Light, and again I'm here with Dr. Michael Fitzgerald from Noblesville Pediatrics. Would you mind sharing your contact information for everybody?
I am presently at Noblesville Pediatrics, which is part of Riverview Health, and we are located next to the bowling alley on 32, so 865 Westfield Road in Noblesville.
And if anybody wants to call you guys, it looks like we've got 317-776-0880 is the number for over there over at Noblesville Pediatrics.
Sure thing.
Also, I want to take just a moment to thank our show sponsors today, Jim Wofford, the Wofford Theater, and our Noblesville Chick-fil-A. So thank you so much to our sponsors. So when we left off, we were kind of talking about maybe getting into, I don't know really kind of where you want to start back up.
Well, when I left, I talked about the sideline evaluation and getting the teenager out of the game and probably in to see the primary care physician and then in the next few days or so. If they think it's severe enough to go to the emergency room and get a head CT done to kind of rule out some bleeding in the brain, sometimes that's done. It's not always necessary, though. So when a parent comes in with their teenager to see me, I try and explain exactly what I talked about here, what a concussion is, explain to the teenager who also doesn't know what a concussion, what's going on inside the brain, and I think that enlightens them a little bit too, which also then leads to, what are we going to do about it? Well, the biggest thing to do about it is rest. You rest your brain, and you rest all the input going into your brain, so that means reducing your screen time. So the eyes and the ears are the windows and the vent to the brain, and so if you're playing lots of loud music, if you're watching YouTube videos, if you're watching TV videos, texting, computer screens, iPad stuff for school, that sounds like every teenager out there. And so it's hard to tell them you have to stop most of that. You can't tell a teenager you have no contact with the rest of the world for the next 2 weeks or so, but they should really limit screen time. They need to rest their brain. And this also includes resting your brain of school functions as well. Sometimes we have teenagers who will go in for only a partial day of school or a half day of school, or they go in as far as they can and then they get really tired and they're not paying attention. One of the symptoms of a concussion can be inattention. So you are really not able to pay attention to what you're being lectured on, and so therefore, what about these tests? You certainly can't take any major tests like an SAT or an ACT because you really will not do well on that. And so we'll have teachers reduce homework loads, try and do things that are not as visual but more writing things out, maybe some oral testing or something along those lines. Hydration is a big key too.
Okay.
So they really need to, if you're underhydrated, even in the best of times, your brain's not going to function as well. Making sure that you keep up on your meals. So if you're hypoglycemic, your brain's not going to function well. So those are the two big things. But brain rest is the key. And staying out of situations where you may re-injure your brain while you're trying to heal your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to go out on your bike. You don't want to be out on your skateboard. You don't want to be jumping on a trampoline up and down all the time. And obviously staying out of contact sports. And so what parents need to do is help their teenager with these things, and to watch the teenager to see what other subtle signs that they're seeing, because you can get mood changes with a concussion. Anything that's affecting your brain is going to affect your mood, your speed, your reaction time, your attention. And so sometimes you can get some temporary depression.
Mm-hmm.
You can get angry. And so those are things that parents watch for, to make sure that there's nothing that needs to be addressed with the physician as far as worsening signs.
So how long after, like I know for instance in my son's situation, when he was in a soccer game, had gotten hit in the head, went down, he was pulled out of the game, they determined that they thought it wasn't a concussion but still wanted us to watch him, but we had no idea how long we should be watching him.
Well, that's a good question. In the past, we have kind of gone by a rule of thumb. We've graded concussions and say you have a mild, you have a medium, you have a severe, or a 1, 2, and a 3. That kind of went out a couple of years ago with grading concussions. We still do a little bit. It's helpful if we have a baseline pre-concussion test, and many schools now are doing that, and many sports are doing that, where they have a computerized test and they can test their speed, reaction time, attention, and such on that. It gives us a little bit more of an objective finding. And if we can test them immediately after this head injury and say, oh, you really don't have a concussion, you just have a headache and you know, this isn't so bad. Or if they're way below their baseline, then we can say, oh, compared to where you used to be, you're pretty down and we need to keep you out for a little bit longer. So we use that a little bit. But if we don't have the luxury of that, we can at least test them on a computerized testing mechanism and see where we think they would be in relationship to peers. And then we can base that on how to keep them out longer, and then maybe retest them in a week or so, and then bring them back and say, well, let's retest you and see how you're doing. And if they look like they're recovered or pretty close to where we think their baseline ought to be, or if we do have their baseline, we know if they're back, then we know that they can be released.
So even if you suspect that your child could have possibly had a concussion, you still recommend bringing them into the doctor then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I would definitely do that.
Okay. And then it sounds like as far as the decision to take them to the ER, if you're seeing some very much out of the ordinary neurological symptoms from them, then at that point you should go ahead and take them.
Yeah, I think 10%, like I mentioned, of all concussions have a loss of consciousness. I think I would err on the side of caution of going to the emergency room if you have a loss of consciousness, just to be checked out a little bit more thoroughly.
That makes sense. So now what about some precautions or prevention? What can we be doing there?
Prevention is going to be mostly education, especially some of these sports where the goal is really to separate you from the ball, get you down on the ground as hard and as quickly as possible. You have to be able to do it in maybe a better way, where you don't put yourself at risk for concussion by hitting somebody directly with your head. And so now there's this heads up thing with football. So you tackle with your heads up, you make eye contact with whatever you're tackling and whoever you're tackling, and you try not to hit them directly with your head. There's rules against hitting, say, above the shoulders with your helmets, and so you're trying to protect yourself and the other player. And there's this mindset of football for the last 50 years, and it's a very rough sport. And so trying to change coaches' attitude and teenagers' attitudes and parents' attitude to go get them, go get them, go get them kind of thing, that's going to be the biggest thing is education. Helmets have not been proven to prevent concussions, so they can reduce the incidence of more severe head injuries like skull fractures and brain bleeds, but they're not going to reduce concussions themselves.
All right. Well, would you mind sharing your contact information one more time before we wrap up?
Yes. I'm at Noblesville Pediatrics in Noblesville, Indiana, and we're over on the West side of town, 776-0880.
All right. Thank you so much for this great information. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anytime. It's fun to be here.
Thanks for being here. We'll be right back.
You know, when Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage. Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Welcome back to Be the Light. I want to now welcome Marcus Rue here to the show. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And Marcus is a young man who actually suffered a concussion, and so he's going to kind of give us some insight as to how that was for him. I had one, but it was a really, really long time ago. So again, to my brother, if you're watching this show, I'm watching you, man. So how long ago was your concussion?
Just about 2 months ago during a football season.
Okay, so
yeah.
During a football game?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and do you remember what happened?
I kind of just, it was very vague. I remember just getting hit in the side of the head by some big dude, and it hurt pretty bad.
Yeah. Now, I'm kind of like, I'm kind of clueless on football.
Yeah.
Did you, like, go down? I mean, what?
Well, so I play quarterback. You're very exposed because you're looking downfield. And so a person coming from my side, I could not see him. I had no way to react. So he just hit me on the side of the head, and I just remember being on the ground and my head just started hurting immediately. So.
Okay. So immediate headache. So then what happened? Did they take you off the field at that point?
Actually, I said I was fine, but I wasn't because it was at the end of the game. I played one more play, and then the game ended. So, and then after the game, they took me onto the sideline, onto the bench, and started evaluating me, and it was not good.
Okay, so did they kind of do some of the tests that Dr. Fitzgerald was talking about?
Yeah, they would just ask me questions about kind of like where I was. I knew that stuff, but my eyes, they did this eye test, and my pupils weren't reacting, and it was and I felt very dizzy, and my head hurt really bad.
Your head hurt. Did you have any nausea or anything as well, or?
No, but I was very dizzy.
Okay.
So
now, from there, what happened? Did you get taken into the hospital at that point?
No, the trainer actually talked to my dad, said, you need to take him into a physician, and so the next morning, actually, we went into the physician, and they said it was a very, very mild, but it was still a concussion, and so they had to take me off of, just like he said, screens, limited my schoolwork, and limited my time at school. So, yeah.
So what kind of symptoms did you continue to have?
Some symptoms were just regular headaches. I still sometimes get just headaches, I just have a headache the whole day, and it just sucks. But
You still do now?
Oh yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I
So-
don't know if it's concussion induced or is it just headache, but I just kind of have a normal head hurt.
Okay.
So.
Huh, interesting. So then, do you find that taking a brain rest, like we were talking about, does that help with that, or?
Yes, it kind of calms you down. It doesn't make you as like tired sometimes. It'll just kind of relax you and not make you have to drain energy.
Okay. So now, is there anything that you're doing differently when you play football since that happened, or?
There hasn't been really many things I've done differently. I've just I took 2.5 weeks off, and then I went back, and it wasn't really a huge deal. It was just kind of shocking to see how much it affected kind of you as an individual.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think that that's a really good point, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this show today. I was talking with Dr. Fitzgerald earlier about a young lady at my church who had walked into church with sunglasses on, and I thought she was just being goofy. When I said to her, "Why are you wearing sunglasses?" she said she had a concussion, and I had absolutely no idea that a concussion could be that severe that you would need to do that.
Yeah, that was also another side effect. My eyes were very sensitive to light. It was very difficult for me to sometimes read, like focus on reading, because it would just start hurting my eyes. And so.
How long did that last?
About 2 weeks. The whole time they told me to just kind of stay off stuff, but then it got better as it went along.
So did you have to wear sunglasses too then?
No.
No?
It wasn't that bad.
Oh, okay. Didn't get to be Mr. Cool, walk around with your shades on, huh? So then after that, were you kind of back to full school,
Yeah, after a few weeks, yeah. It was still kind of shaky, but it was way better than it did starting, so.
Okay. And you went back into football after that, or?
Mm-hmm. I went back into football. They kind of put me into it slowly, so first I would have a practice where I'd just be able to throw the ball, or just kind of like no contact. Then we'd start having a little bit of contact. You can put a head helmet on and kind of have a little bit of contact. And by like 4 or 5 days, I would go back to full contact to see how it was feeling, and I felt pretty good. So they kept me at that, and it got better.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you sharing this from your perspective, because like I said, I had one. It was so long ago I don't remember it. Yeah. Or hey, maybe that's just a side effect of my concussion. I don't know. Explains a lot about me, I'm sure people would say. So anyway, thank you again so much for your time. I do want to also again thank our show sponsors today, the Wofford Theater, Jim Wofford, and our Noblesville Chick-fil-A. And let me go ahead and just share with you my contact information. My name is Denise Rezsonya. My phone number is 317-200-2511, and my website is www.denisemrezsonya.com, DENISEMREZSONYA. Or you can email me at drezsonya@gmail.com, which is DREZSONYA@gmail.com. And just a reminder that we are now just on the first and third Tuesdays of the month at 3 p.m. So I will talk to you all again next month. Thank you so much.